Hello, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time to the channel, you're more than welcome, and you're in good company. So we're on yet another Scottish adventure. We're up on the west coast of Scotland. We did do a day on Mull, because I know mostly I go on Mull, and next week I'm back off to Mull with Pops. So I'm sure there'll be a video coming from Mull very, very soon. Yesterday we did Loch Shiel. That was fantastic. And I'm still buzzing from that experience. And if you want to see the fruits of yesterday's expedition, check out the video, Loch Shiel. Absolutely magical. So today we're in a hide. And for those of you that follow my channel, you'll know I love a good hide. It's one of the aspects of photography that I really, really enjoy. And I saw this particular hide, on another YouTuber's video, Simon Eardley. Thank you very much. And immediately having watched the video, I contacted Keith, who's the owner and the runner of this, the person who runs this hide. And I asked him what the opportunities were to get in this hide. And he's bent over backwards for me, he really has. We couldn't stay in his little, he's got a little camping pod, and we couldn't stay in the camping pod, it was already booked out. Not to worry, we were renting a motorhome anyway. So he's organised for us to stay somewhere on the motorhome. Absolutely fantastic. He recommended the Loch Shiel cruises to us yesterday, while we've been staying on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. Again, absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate that, Keith. So today, we're off to photograph pine martens. Now, for those of you that follow the channel and know me well, you'll know that mustelids are my absolute favourite. I love badgers, I love otters. Stoats, quite fast becoming my new favourite species. I've been to photograph pine martens once before, over at Speyside with Jackie Kelly. And Jackie Kelly's hide's a wonderful hide. And I have done a video for that hide, so please check it out. We only got one visit at that hide. So when I saw this hide, I thought we need to come and check this out. And hopefully bring you some fantastic video and some awesome photographs of these amazing little creatures. So come along for the journey and see what I see. Now, whenever I come to Scotland, I like to bring the sunshine with me. And although it's only a very short walk from where we've parked up to get to the hide, it ain't half warm today. And I'm sweating a little bit, and I was panting a little bit as I was coming up there doing pieces to camera, which is why I kept stopping as I was talking. So we've arrived. I'm going to show you around and talk you through the setup. What Keith has said to me in preparation for coming up to here is that he's not fussy. You know, you can chop and change and move things around as much as you want. What he's done for us, which I actually love, is he's been and got some of the heather, and the heather's obviously all in bloom at the moment. So he's put some heather out on the various different posts that we've got, which looks absolutely beautiful. So we've got the heather, we've got a log here with some mosses on it. That looks really, really nice. We've got this, obviously the dry stone wall itself, which looks fantastic. There's a log going off to the back, and then there's quite a big tree stump that's been put up. And there's a little pot on the back of that I've just put a few goodies, a few little treats for birds, red squirrel, and hopefully the pine marten. I'm going to start to bring my voice down a little bit just in case they're in the area. They have been to this hide as early as 4:45 in the evening. So there's a very good chance that we might see them here. Then, obviously, towards the back here, you've got the hide. The hide itself, absolutely fantastic little hide, really secure, really well weatherproofed. You'd be snug as a bug in there no matter what the weather was. We're quite fortunate that we've got 2 days in this hide, and the weather looks set to be absolutely stunning. So fingers crossed we'll get some daytime shots in this lovely light, and I'll bring something to you. So we're in the hide now, and it's quite dark in here. One of the things that I would recommend, I mean, Keith does put out some lights for you. There's a a little light here that you can turn on, and there's a little light up here if you've got a power bank you can attach to. But whenever I come to a hide, I always bring a torch. I just think they're absolutely invaluable in a hide. It's very easy when you're inside a hide to drop something on the floor, can't find it, and then be fumbling around. So if you just bring a torch with you to every hide session, I think it's just an invaluable piece of kit that a lot of people don't mention. So inside the hide, we've got some camouflage netting over the front, some scrim netting, and inside we've got a gimbal head that's already in place, fastened to the surface. Now what Keith has said is I could bring my own gimbal head along, and I have brought my gimbal head with me. It's a Gitso fluid gimbal head, so it just helps a little bit with video. But actually, having seen what Keith's got set up here, I'm just going to use his gimbal head. I think that's absolutely perfect. So the first thing that I do whenever I come to a hide is I look at the setup, weigh everything up, and then I start to try and visualize what kind of shots that I might be getting. I know where the feed has been put out, so I know where to expect the animals coming in. So I've experimented with different focal lengths on the setup that we've got in front of us. I would say if the subject was going to be on that far tree, the far tree that I pointed out to you before, 500mm would be optimum. However, I suspect that most of the shots are going to be on that dry stone wall in front of us. And I want to make sure that I get as much of the animal in shot. I want to make sure that I capture that beautiful blossoming heather that Keith's put out for us. And so for that reason, I'm going to use the 70-200. I'm going to use the 70-200. I'm not going to use the 2x converter, but what I am going to do at different points is I'm going to flick between FX and DX mode. Now I've had comments in the past asking why on earth do I use DX mode, why don't you just crop in afterwards on the full frame image? And for me, I just find that when I use the DX mode, the focusing performs better when you're focusing on smaller subjects in the frame. That might just be a confidence thing for myself, and I might have more confidence in it in DX mode, and that's why I switched to it. It might have something to do with that's the way that I'm used to seeing these focal lengths through a DX mode, because I had a Nikon D500 before this, which was obviously a crop sensor. But either way, that's what I'm going to use. And the 500mm, I think we'd get some lovely tight portraits of the pine martens. But the chances are, once they arrive, I don't want to be switching lenses if I think it's too close. And I just think the 500 is going to be too close. We've got 2 nights here. I can always use the 500mm tomorrow if I want to try something different, if we get some great results tonight. Now, Keith has sent me through some settings that I'm going to share with you guys as well. This isn't for settings for when we're shooting now. When we're shooting now, what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using it in manual mode with auto ISO. I'm going to be having my shutter speed probably at my foundation level, which is a thousandth of a second. And I've explained that in previous videos that I always have that base, that foundation of a thousandth of a second, and then I play with it around from there. My aperture, I'm probably going to sit at around f4. I might increase that to f8 if the pine martens are in. They're quite a long animal, so I want to try and make sure that that focal length and that depth of field are working in combination to get as much of the subject in as possible. And then the camera will choose the ISO for me. When the flashes arrive and I get the trigger onto the camera, at that point I'm now introducing flash, so things change a little bit. So what I'll do then is I'll take it off auto ISO and I'll put it in full manual mode. Now what Keith has suggested to me is that I operate with a 200th of a second, which is a good sync speed with the flashes. I think that the Z9 will go all the way up to 250th of a second, but I'll go with the 200th of a second. He's suggesting f8 for the same reasons that I've explained about that depth of field and making sure you've got as much of that animal in as possible. And then the ISO is going to start off at 640, and then that's going to capture plenty of ambient light. And then as the ambient light that's available begins to fall off as we progress into the evening, I can increase the ISO as we progress through the evening to adjust for that lack of light. And then it's going to be a 3 flash setup, so there's 2 flashes on either side of the hide pointing towards the wall, and then there's going to be a 3rd flash which is going to be set behind the wall, which is going to create a rim light onto the subject. So that 3 flash setup, fantastic setup, and it's a classic setup that you would use with a camera trap. So something that I am quite familiar with and I've used before. So hopefully that's going to give us some fantastic results. As cute as anything, so I'll pop some video and some pictures up on the screen now for you to see. So Keith's just been in and he's rebaited everything up for me, and what he's done is he's set up the flashes, and as I said before, he uses cam traptions flashes, which I'm really interested in seeing. He said they're fantastic set of flashes and they last for ages, because on my camera trap setup at home I use the Nikon SB24s and SB28s, which are great, but they're getting a bit old now and they're really hard to come by. So there's 3 flashes that have been set up. Everything's been baited up, and then in addition to that he's got 2 constant lights, and what the constant lights do is they just put just enough light onto the wall that allows me to focus for when the pine martens come in, if they've come in and it's too dark to be able to focus. So I've switched the camera now from multi-shot mode, so from 20 frames per second just to single shot. He said you can fire the shots off quite quickly, but by doing it singly it allows the flashes chance to recharge and to light up. So now is the real exciting time. We've just got to wait. We've just had a quick look on the trail cameras that he's got out, and yesterday he put bait out yesterday, and within 20 minutes the pine martens had arrived. So it's time to get quiet. It's time to sit back, relax and wait for them to arrive. Very exciting. I'm back in the van. Wow, what an experience. What a terrific experience. We have seen a pine marten before. We saw one at Jackie Kelly's hide that I mentioned at the start of the video. And it came in, grabbed an egg and left, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. But what we've just been treated to is something else. The mother and two kits came in, and we saw initially the mother came in, but I think the mother remained then behind the wall. The kits, however, put on a show. They were jumping over each other, they were climbing up the tree, they were chasing each other along the wall. At one point it was a bit like whack-a-mole, as one would pop up in one place, its head would go back down, and then it would pop up in another place. It was fantastic. All apart from one thing. I was messed up with my camera, didn't I? I had an absolute nightmare. So initially when Keith had been, we got the flashes set up and a red squirrel came in and it was eating the hazelnuts that had been put out, and that looked brilliant, and I was getting some great shots with it, and the fill flash was filling the front of the squirrel really nice with a lovely backdrop, and I captured lots of ambient light, and I thought this is just going to be perfect. All we need now is the pine martens to turn up. And as time went on and the light began to fade, the pine martens arrived. Wow, perfect. Turn my camera on, get ready to go. Oh, I've got live view on my camera. And what that means is, whatever exposure settings I've set, so whatever aperture, whatever shutter speed, ISO I've set, the effects of that show in the viewfinder. And of course, it's now set up for a flash, but the camera doesn't know that it's set up for a flash. So it thinks that it's at 200th of a second at f8 with an ISO of 640. What that means is, as I'm looking through the viewfinder, all I can see is blackness. I know that the pine marten's there because every time I look up from the camera, I can see it looking back at me, but I can't get the shot. So I'm guessing. Now the camera is focusing perfectly, the green dots coming, the green squares coming on, so I know it's focusing, but I don't know whether it's focusing on the pine marten, the log, the trees behind it. I don't know if where I'm looking is the pine marten is even in frame. So I got some shots off, and then I was frantically Googling on my phone how to turn off live settings, because it's not something that I turn off very often. You know, I do some studio work with a photography club that I'm part of, but it's something that I don't often do. Anyway, a good 20 minutes later, I've managed to turn it off, and I've got some shots of the pine marten. Well, at least I look like I got some shots on the back of the camera. But that's the beauty of doing 2 nights in a hide. Tonight was the dry run. Tonight was the let's get all the mistakes made, and then tomorrow we know exactly what we're doing. All we need is the pine martens to play their part, because they certainly did tonight, so hopefully they'll come back tomorrow. Some well needed sleep now, and tomorrow is another day. So here we are, day number 2, and what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, walking up in a t-shirt, sweating cobs. Typically Scotland's weather can change like that. It's not cold, but it probably will be when we're walking back later, hence the reason the coat and the hat. Spent the day with Keith today. What a fantastic guy he is. If you don't follow him on Instagram, I'm going to pop his Instagram up on the page now. Give him a follow. Wow, what incredible images he takes. Not just wildlife, landscape as well. And he's won many awards for his images. He's got a few initials after his name as well, as he's got a fair bit of accreditation for his photography, and well deserved. He showed me today a second hide that he's setting up at the moment, which I'm hoping to come back to in the winter, which will be for buzzards. That will be fantastic, and the setup that he's got down there is fantastic. So I'm hoping to come back and see that. Day 2, let's hope the pine martens play out in the daylight and we get some fantastic shots of them. If they don't, they don't. I'll take them in the night time. I'll take them any time of the day, as long as I get a little bit of photographs and a little bit of film for you good people at home. So come along for that journey and see what I see. Okay, we are back in the hide for day number 2. And boy do I need day number 2. I had a nightmare yesterday. So I'm hoping today's a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more smooth. Just go through the setup, it's pretty much the same as yesterday. So today we've got the flashes right from the word go, so I'm going to be using the flashes as full flash for whatever comes into the area right from the word go. So if the red squirrels, the jays, anything else come in early, I'm going to use that full flash. There are 3 flashes, so the 2 flashes that are forward facing that will illuminate the scene, okay, they're set at a 1/4 power, and then behind the dry stone wall, set lower, directed upwards, is the 3rd flash, and that's going to create that rim light. Going to aim to be a little bit more quiet than was yesterday. Ideally I'd love for these pine martens to come in early doors. I'd love them to be here while we've still got daylight. A lot of the shots last night that I got were in complete darkness, and whilst they're fantastic shots, and they really are, I'd love to get some shots, and particularly some video of them in daylight. So that's what we're hoping for. So there's not going to be that many pieces to camera between now and them arriving, because I don't want to jeopardise anything that might stop them from coming in. And then it's just a waiting game, and I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting for these pine martens whatsoever, because they're an absolutely fantastic little mustelid. Their interactions yesterday, because it was a mother and the 2 kits, and they were bouncing all over the show, was fantastic. It was just a shame that I didn't get the shots. But everything's set up on my camera as it should be now. All the problems that I had last night hopefully have been ironed out. So fingers crossed, we've got some good times ahead of us. So stay watching. Fingers crossed. couldn't record the follow-up video or the follow-up section of the video from the pine marten hide because literally we finished in the pine marten hide for probably about 20 past 10, We walked back down through the woods, got to the motorhome, and then we jumped in, and I've driven all the way back through the night to get back home, because we needed to drop the motorhome off back with the hire company people today. So it was a little bit rushed. Equally, when we were in the hide, there wasn't a lot of scope to be able to do any pieces to camera, and there are a number of reasons for that. The first one, that pine martens are really sensitive to noise, and Keith had said that to us from the start. You know, you need to be quiet and you need to have good hide etiquette to ensure that you're not spooking the pine martens. So the second night, how did it go? Well, it was a very different night to the first night, and very different 2 nights to the experience that Simon Eardley got, where he had the pine martens coming out in daylight, and he's got some fantastic video. Our pine martens didn't come out until it had gone dark, so it was really dark by the time that they'd come out. I've got a little bit of video of them. I popped the GoPro on a little tripod near to the wall, and I can remotely control the GoPro. It's the Hero 11, and I can remotely control that from my phone. And so the female came in, and she came in at about 8:30, 8:45. No, it wasn't. It was at least 8:45. And she spotted the GoPro straight away. Now, when I set it up, I didn't think that, both Keith and I didn't think that it would have any problems, because it's got permanent lights on there. But she spotted it straight away, and she about turned and left, and she left the area. Now, luckily on the GoPro, what you can do on the phone is you can any controls that you've got on the GoPro, you can do directly from the phone. So what I did is I shut down the front screen and I shut down the LEDs. So for all intents and purposes, it was just a black box. But I think that was probably enough for the female not to come back. And I thought, oh, we've probably blown it here. The second chance, camera's already not got that opportunity. And then the male arrived. And Keith said right from the start that the male is very confident, and he was confident. I saw him coming down the wall from the left-hand side, and I could see him approaching where the point of interest was, really, the point on the wall where the lights, the flashlights are going to light it up. I fired up the GoPro, so that was recording as he came in, and very different behaviour to the female and the kits. What the female and the kits would do is they'd come in, they'd steal a bit of food, and then they'd take it away and they'd eat it. Not the male. He just sat there eating away on the wall, posing. So I've had a great opportunity for some fantastic photographs. It was a really first class hide experience, and Keith was just an absolute and amazing host. He took me to another one of his hides during the daytime. He even invited us back to his house for a bacon butty, which was lovely, and some fresh eggs, because he's got chickens and ducks himself in the grounds of his house. A really nice guy. I mentioned before that he has got an Instagram page, and I've already put the link up for that, but I also want to direct you to the web page for this pine marten hide. If you want some first class opportunities to capture pine martens at close quarters, this is a fantastic hide to do it in, and I thoroughly recommend it. So I'll pop the link up on the screen now, and what I'll also do is I'll put a link to his website in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Keith's also got a camping pod on the grounds of his house, so he rents that out, so you don't even have to worry about accommodation if that's something that you're interested in. You know, you can put you up for accommodation and going into the pine marten hide all together as one package, and it's definitely worthwhile. As I mentioned before, he's also an award-winning photographer, loads of different awards, and he's got a website for that as well. So have a look at his website and have a look at some of his images. He's got some really big awards, and he's quite modest with it, so it's definitely worth checking out. He is a fantastic photographer. And then really all I want to finish by saying is like and subscribe, as I always encourage you to do. If you are subscribed, if you click the bell icon on the channel, it'll notify you whenever I release a new video. I try to release one every Sunday at 8 o'clock, but the bell will notify you when that happens, so that's make sure you don't miss any of those videos that I put out in future. And until next time, ta-ra.